Hey there everyone and welcome back to Utility Sports. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about my 2021 NBA free agency winners and losers. But before we jump into that, I just want to urge you guys to hit that subscribe button and also leave a like on today's video if you've been enjoying the NBA content here on the channel. We had a very successful live stream, so hopefully you guys were able to stop into that and check it out. We were live for over 7.5 hours on day one of free agency. And I'm actually recording this as of 1 a.m. Eastern time on August 4th. So this is right after the conclusion of day 2 of NBA free agency. So there's still some guys out on the marketplace, like John Collins is a big example of a player still out there. So that would maybe shift this, but I am recording this ahead of time. This will get scheduled for the day of August 4th. And I'm recording it the night before, technically. So we're looking at something that can maybe shift a little bit. So if something big happens, check the comment section. I'll update it. But as of right now, this is my winners and losers. I'm doing 3 of each category here. So let's go ahead here and jump into the losers. That's always the fun one to talk about first. And we're really looking at teams that didn't necessarily maximize what they could have done this offseason, maybe made some bad moves as well. And then we also might be including a player or two overall in this winners and losers. Right here, our first loser is the New York Knicks. They're my third loser. And you look at these deals, none of them are necessarily bad on their own. Derrick Rose to a 3-year, $42 million deal. That's a good deal to me. That's right around where his market value was. He has extreme utility there for Tom Thibodeau. We know how good of a relationship that those two have as business colleagues and obviously around the NBA. Derrick Rose has played for him in 3 different locations, in Chicago, in Minnesota, and now in New York. And it's worked out very well in all 3 places, so I can't say that's a bad deal itself. Nerlens Noel to a 3-year, $32 million deal. That, again, is not a bad deal. That's his market. He was going to have a very nice market around the league. He's a very good player, really good rim protector, and he really found himself in Tom Thibodeau's system this past year defensively. Looked like a guy who was worth a former lottery pick. He's kind of lived up to that potential now after joining the New York Knicks. Alec Burks to a 3-year, $30 million deal. Again, not a bad deal for him. You're looking at a very nice bench scoring option, can come in and give you buckets. He really kept the Knicks alive in that playoff series in some of those games, had a phenomenal fourth quarter, one of those games against the Atlanta Hawks. He's a nice player, and I think that's about his market value there again as well. 3 years, $30 million. That's not a bad deal. Evan Fournier to a 4-year, $78 million deal. Now that's $19.5 million a year. That is quite a bit for Evan Fournier. I will not lie to you guys. I think that is a slight overpay here, and that is what contributes partially to them being on my losers aspect here, and also Taj Gibson to a 1-year deal. So you're looking at 5 players, but the issue with me, with the New York Knicks, 4 of these guys are re-signings. Of course, Derrick Rose, Nerlens Noel, Alec Burks, and Taj Gibson. And then your addition of Evan Fournier. Last year, they were 4th in the Eastern Conference. You had a career year from Julius Randle. You had a career year from Reggie Bullock down the stretch, who you lost. Nerlens Noel had a career year. Alec Burks had basically a career resurgence. Derrick Rose, I think, is really going to be consistent in what he gave you last year. And Taj Gibson, just a filler at this point. I don't know, unless there's massive growth from RJ Barrett, that this team can get back to where they were last year. And I'm sure they were hoping to take even steps forward, win a playoff series. Evan Fournier is a nice player, but just like we saw with the Boston Celtics, he's not going to really elevate your ceiling that much. He kind of just elevates your floor a little bit. This probably ensures that the Knicks get back into the postseason, maybe as an 8 seed, 7 seed. But I don't see them being as good as they were last year, especially if Julius Randle's production drops just a hair. They had a very slim margin taking the 4th seed out east, and it showed in the playoffs too. They weren't better than the Atlanta Hawks. And I think really when it comes down to it, they're not better than a lot of those other teams out east. There's other teams as well in the Eastern Conference that really improved. Look at the Miami Heat, Chicago Bulls, for example. It's going to be tough for the Knicks to get back into a top 4 seed. And just based on how much money they committed as well, a lot of money on the table here for these 5 players. They took themselves out of 2022 free agency. There's going to be stars possibly available like Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, James Harden, Kawhi Leonard. Now, I don't necessarily know if any of those guys are going to be switching teams, but if any of them are, you pulled yourself out of the race, New York, and it's to stay at a level you were basically at this point. I don't know if I see the Knicks advancing any further in the playoffs next year. It's just a tough situation for the New York Knicks. I don't think that they necessarily dropped the ball with a single contract here, and I don't think any of these contracts is necessarily terrible. I just think overall, holistically, you look at the Knicks, and this is a whole bunch of guys that's going to get you back to where you were and not help you progress to where you want to go. Number 2 here, my second biggest loser is Dennis Schroder. He's unsigned after day 2 of NBA free agency, and the market has really dried up for him. You're looking at the free agent market for point guards really being filled out. Kyle Lowry to the Miami Heat. The Chicago Bulls pick up Lonzo Ball. You have Devontae Graham to the New Orleans Pelicans. Thomas Satoransky went to the Pelicans in that sign and trade deal. Pelicans are filled out. The Hornets got their point guard, who's a very guard-heavy draft, and now Dennis Schroder here probably scratching his head wondering, why did I turn down a 4-year, $80+ million extension with the Los Angeles Lakers a few months ago? He currently does not have a job, and there's not a lot of teams out there looking for point guards yet at this point either. I expect him to get signed at some point. Maybe the Lakers get back in on him. Maybe the New York Knicks look at him. But at the end of the day, I think Dennis Schroder has to be considered one of the big losers from free agency so far. And then my biggest loser from free agency, and for those of you who do not know, I am a Dallas Mavericks fan, and that is who I have as the biggest loser so far here in free agency. And again, I think this is another example of none of these deals are absolutely terrible. Tim Hardaway Jr. to a 4-year, $74 million deal, I think that's really good. He got offered a 4-year, $90 million deal, which is what I thought his market value was going to be around. So I think 4 years, $74 million is really, really solid deal for Tim Hardaway Jr. I like bringing back Boban Marjanovic on a 1-year deal. Sterling Brown on a 2-year, $6.2 million deal. Nothing wrong with that. It's a pretty nice signing, 3-and-D wing. Reggie Bullock to a 3-year, $30.5 million deal. Not terrible, again, in and of itself, but you're looking at the combination of these deals really hurting the Dallas Mavericks' future, in my estimation, because this was such a rare opportunity. A lot of teams don't have this situation play out where you have an NBA player like Luka Doncic, who's 22 years old, an all-NBA caliber player already twice in his career, and he's playing on the rookie contract. Yeah, this was their last chance before his Supermax extension takes place to use salary cap space. Next offseason, they will not have salary cap space because you're looking at Kristaps Porzingis being on the max and Luka Doncic being on the max. They will not have money now in free agency for the next 5 years. That is detrimental to this roster. That is detrimental to the future of the organization. If they went out and spent this offseason in free agency, they could have put another star or maybe two around Luka Doncic and Kristaps Porzingis. Instead, Tim Hardaway Jr. is the best player coming back to the Mavericks, and we added a couple shooters who stand there and don't really give you a lot other than, you know, an escape dribble into a jump shot and a little bit of defensive intensity. Reggie Bullock, Sterling Brown, capable defenders, but offensively they don't create for you, and that's what the Dallas Mavericks need to add, and they failed to do so. There were some really good options out there. They got priced out of a couple of them, but at the end of the day, this is an L for my Dallas Mavericks in free agency. You have to come at it honestly. They wanted Richaun Holmes, didn't get him, especially the fact that you're looking at Richaun Holmes making only a few $1 million more per year than Dwight Powell. That's an L, okay, in free agency. Let's be honest, Mavs fans, with ourselves. I'm an MFFL, Mav fan for life, but being completely unbiased here, the Dallas Mavericks are a loser in free agency. Now onto the winners, the little bit more cheery part of the episode, talking about who really did a good job in NBA free agency. And first of all, I have Zach Collins here. He was my third big winner. Signs a 3-year, $22 million deal. Got actually a little bit more than his cap hold number at $7 million. Got $7.33 million per year in those 3 years with the Spurs. And not only is this good for him money-wise, getting a longer-term contract because he suffered with injuries, but he's in a destination that's going to give him an opportunity to live up to that potential he had coming in as a former lottery pick out of Gonzaga. He's a talented big man, able to play the 4 and 5 position. He's going to be able to coexist next to Jakob Poeltl. And I think this is a real possibility that he could resurrect his career playing in the NBA. All he needs to be is healthy. He's skilled. He can step out to the three-point line a little bit, has some feel as a passer. I really like Zach Collins as a player. He's still very young. It was very surprising to me that the Blazers actually did not offer him the qualifying offer. I think that they're just a little bit sick and tired of his injury history. And here the Spurs grab a really nice forward, big man who can play the 4 or 5 position. Like I said, I think that this is a really, really good landing spot for Zach Collins. My second biggest winner is both the Chicago Bulls and DeMar DeRozan. The Bulls, during free agency, what a wonderful job. They were able to bring in Lonzo Ball on a 4-year, $85 million deal in a sign and trade with the New Orleans Pelicans. They were able to bring in Alex Caruso using their mid-level exception on a 4-year, $37 million deal. DeMar DeRozan, 3-year, $85 million in a sign and trade. And the reason DeMar DeRozan is a big winner here is, wow, he got a lot of money. 3 years, $85 million. That's a lot more than I was expecting DeMar DeRozan to get in free agency. But the reason why the Bulls are still winners, even with DeMar inking such a big deal, is because they ended up using the contracts of Al-Farouq Aminu and Thaddeus Young to get there. They give up two okay players in a deal for a really nice player in DeMar DeRozan, who I think is a perfect fit onto the roster. He can play the 2 or 3. So you're looking at next year having a starting lineup of Lonzo Ball, also Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, probably Patrick Williams at the 4. And then at the 5, you've got Nikola Vucevic, who they traded for at the deadline last year. Then off the bench, you've got Kobe White, Alex Caruso, two of your young building blocks there. I really like what the Chicago Bulls have done already at this point. And then on top of that, they traded Daniel Tice to the Rockets in a sign and trade, helped facilitate that for the Rockets. And you bring in a trade exception there of almost $9 million. So during the season, they have a possibility of bringing in another nice player. You give up a couple of second-round picks or something in a deal like that, and you're able to bring in another nice a rotational player that'll help your team come. I think the Bulls are one of the best improved teams this offseason. They've improved more than a lot of other teams. They got Lonzo Ball for really cheap, Thomas Satoransky, Garrett Temple, who I don't even think they were going to really bring back at this point, and then also a second-round pick to get the rights to Lonzo Ball. That's a phenomenal deal, and they got him at a really good price point to me, $21.25 million, really, really good. Caruso in the mid-level, I love for this team. And real quick, I want to talk about how this is a phenomenal fit for Billy Donovan. When he was coaching the Oklahoma City Thunder with Chris Paul there, he became famous for his 3-guard lineup of Dennis Schroder, Chris Paul, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander that found so much success. Listen to this possible backcourt combination that he has moving forward. You've got Lonzo, Caruso, DeRozan, Zach LaVine, and then also Kobe White. You have 5 really NBA quality guards. You're going to be able to rotate through. You have Kobe White in a role that I think he's really going to thrive in, coming off the bench now as a scoring machine, next to Alex Caruso, who's going to take some of that defensive load for the second unit. I absolutely love this for the Chicago Bulls. They are a massive winner in 2021 NBA free agency. Now moving on to my biggest winner, here we have the Miami Heat. I think that they absolutely killed it. Pat Riley, another exhibition of dominance when it comes to free agency, really. In free agency, he was able to re-sign Duncan Robinson to a 5-year, $90 million deal. At $18 million a year, I think that's a really good price point for Duncan Robinson. I think a lot of other teams around the league would have been offering more than $22 million to land the sharpshooter. He's absolutely elite off the move as a catch-and-shoot guy, elevates well, and I think he also, is better in other areas than I think other people give him credit for. Capable of handling the rock a little bit, functioning in the pick and roll as a playmaker. He's gotten better every single year in the league, and I think he's going to continue on that trajectory with the Miami Heat. He's a key piece to what they do there. Then, of course, the big fish landing, Kyle Lowry in a sign-and-trade where you move on from Goran Dragic. We'll see what else goes in that deal. My assumption at this point is Precious Achiuwa. But 3 years, $90 million deal. A little pricey for Kyle Lowry, but at the end of the day, with the Miami Heat, it's going to get you up close to the hard cap. But they're a win-now team, and Kyle Lowry really helps elevate their ceiling. PJ Tucker on a very nice deal using the mid-level exception, 2 years, $15 million. That second year is a player option, so they use that player option to convince them, hey, come here at least for 1 year. And then if you have a down year, you can exercise that player option. And if not, you can re-enter free agency next year when there's a lot of money in the marketplace for him. I think this is a really good addition. They needed some size and physicality. PJ Tucker gives you that. Markieff Morris on a 1-year deal, another example of size and physicality off the wing. Dwayne Dedmon, a sharpshooting big man who I think is a really nice piece actually coming off the bench there. It kind of gives them a nice little switch up from Bam Adebayo. Won't play a lot, probably 10 to 15 minutes a night. That's really all they need from him. They were able to keep Gabe Vincent back on a 2-year deal. And then the big thing here too is extended Jimmy Butler. You have your core locked in now. If you're Miami, Tyler Hero still in the fold as well, so you have a big trade chip if you need to use one, improve this roster a little bit more even. The Miami Heat are in a phenomenal position. Pat Riley deserves a lot of credit. Big pat on the back for him. He's done such a great job here in free agency yet again. Let me know in the comment section who your biggest winners and losers are. I'd love to hear from you guys. Let me know if I missed any teams or players that are big winners or big losers here in this free agency period. Again, a lot that can happen moving forward. We'll see what happens with John Collins and the Atlanta Hawks. He is a restricted free agent. That is one of the key players still out in the market. Hopefully you guys are enjoying the content here at Utility Sports. If you are, smash that like button, and we'll catch you in the very next video.